You keep trying to silence your thoughts, but your thoughts aren't the problem. The problem is the silence around them, the stillness in your life, the lack of direction, the lack of depth, the absence of anything pulling you into something real. It's not that your mind is too loud. It's that your days are too empty. Because here's what no one tells you. The mind was never meant to be the main character. It's a tool, a compass, a guide. But when there's nothing else filling your life with meaning, it takes over. Not because it wants to, but because it has nothing to respond to. So, it loops, endlessly. What if this happens? Why didn't that work? What did they mean? What if I fail? What if I change? What if I stay the same? Not because you're broken, not because you're crazy, but because the part of you built to think has no one giving it something real to think about. You're overthinking because you're under-living. You've created a life that's intellectually full but emotionally starved. You've got content, apps, opinions, but you don't have depth, or purpose, or pace, or anything strong enough to pull you out of your own head. So you stay in there, making meaning out of tiny things, fixating on words, replaying conversations, doubting yourself before anyone else gets the chance. Because the only place your energy has to go is inward. You try to fix it with distractions, scrolling, numbing, self-help in excess, but it just adds more noise without ever addressing the silence underneath it. The silence that comes from waking up with no reason to be urgent. The silence that comes from spending your days reacting instead of creating. The silence that creeps in when you've stopped being the one who chooses. And it's not your fault. We're taught to chase comfort, to play it safe, to build a life that looks secure, even if it slowly starts to shrink us. You check the boxes, you stay out of chaos, you keep things stable, but stability without direction eventually becomes stagnation. And stagnation breeds noise, because your soul was never meant for stillness. Not the kind that comes from fear, not the kind that settles for numbing over meaning. Your mind isn't too loud, your environment is too soft, too passive, too disconnected from anything that reminds you. You're here to do something, to build something, to become something. And until that mission returns, your thoughts will keep circling like vultures over a life that's waiting to be claimed. This isn't about hustle. It's not about constant motion. It's about direction. A deep, grounded, soul-level sense that you are in motion towards something honest. Because when your outer world is starving, your inner world starts screaming. You don't fix a loud mind by silencing it. You fix it by feeding it. With intention, with structure, with real lived energy. Because your thoughts aren't noise, they're signals. And when they won't shut up, it usually means something deeper is starving. Direction, purpose, ownership. That's what's missing. Not more time, not more meditation, not another 10-step morning routine you'll quit by next week. You don't need better coping mechanisms for chaos you're creating by standing still. You need to move, not faster, but with meaning. And that means asking the real questions. What are you building right now? What are you becoming? What are you showing up for that's bigger than your fear? Most people can't answer, not because they don't care, but because somewhere along the way, they gave up authorship of their own life. They stopped creating and started managing. Managing expectations, managing disappointment, managing stress, managing a version of themselves they no longer respect. And when that becomes your full-time job, your mind will scream, because that's not living, that's maintenance. And your nervous system knows the difference. You think you need more control, but what you really need is contact with something real, something alive, something that gives your energy a place to land. That might mean picking up the pen again, returning to the gym, Starting the project you've avoided because failure feels safer than exposure. It might mean getting honest in a relationship you've been ghosting emotionally, or setting boundaries that make people uncomfortable, or facing the grief you've kept tucked beneath your productivity. None of that is easy, but it's real. And realness quiets the mind faster than any breathing app ever could. Because when you're in it, when you're building, healing, showing up, your thoughts fall in line. They finally have something to respond to. They become tools again, not torment. But when there's nothing real happening, when every day is just repetition without direction, your mind panics, it spirals. It fixates on things that don't matter because it has nothing meaningful to hold on to. You call it anxiety, but it's often just misdirected purpose. You call it brain fog, but it's often just emotional avoidance. You call it burnout, but it's often just boredom with a life that doesn't feel like it's yours. So the path isn't to quiet your mind, it's to give your life back its voice. A voice that speaks with action, with rhythm, with stakes. Because the cure to mental noise isn't just rest, it's remembering who you are when you stop outsourcing your direction. There's nothing wrong with your mind. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do: analyze, anticipate, protect. But without a mission, it turns on itself. Without movement, it creates chaos. Without clarity, it starts rehearsing fear like it's preparing for battle. You don't quiet that with discipline. You quiet it with direction. Your mind settles the moment it knows you're taking the lead. Not perfectly, not instantly, but consistently. So, what do? You build a rhythm, not a routine to impress anyone. A rhythm that keeps you connected to life. 1 hour of uncomfortable action a day. One choice that moves the needle instead of numbing the feeling. One step in the direction that makes your voice shake. Because that's usually the one that matters. And no, it won't fix everything overnight. But it'll give your thoughts something to serve. A reason to quiet down. A job that matters. Because when your life becomes full, your mind stops feeling like it has to be. You stop obsessing over what could go wrong because you're finally building something worth getting right. You stop spiraling over people who misunderstand you because you're too busy becoming someone who doesn't shrink to be digestible. You stop looping in regret because you're now focused on what you're creating, not what you missed. It's not magic. It's not hype. It's alignment. And alignment never screams. It doesn't have to. It's a quiet knowing that you're moving in the right direction, even if it's slow, even if it's hard, even if no one claps for it yet. That's when your mind finally exhales. Not because everything's figured out, but because something inside you is finally in motion. So, don't fight the noise. Don't fear it. Don't call yourself broken because your brain is tired of being the only active thing in your life. Just move, build and create, connect, commit. Not because you're chasing perfection, but because you're done being a spectator to your own potential. You don't need to escape your thoughts. You need to live a life that makes them quieter, not from pressure, but from purpose. And when that happens, you'll realize your mind was never the enemy. It was just waiting for your life to finally speak louder than your fear.